Good evening. Welcome to the Livonia Public Schools regular meeting of March 22nd, 2021. It is truly my joy that we are actually here in person. This is our first regular meeting since the legislature and the health department and the governor have decided that we are legally permitted to be meeting in person. We had a committee of the whole meeting last week that went very well, and it is our sincere hope that we will be in person from here on out. But it is our joy to be meeting in person tonight. We are, let's see here. Tonight's meeting is a regular meeting, or as some call it, a voting meeting. That type of meeting means that a lot of the discussion has happened on these items in at least one or two meetings prior to tonight. Therefore, you may not see the level of discussion that you may expect prior to votes on major items for our school district. Please understand that that is not because we are not discussing them at length, but that we already have on at least one, if not more, occasions. If you are looking for the deep discussion on items that are coming before the Board of Education, I strongly recommend that you either attend or watch online live or the next day the Committee of the Whole meetings. Those are the meetings that we really go into great depth on issues that are going to come before the board for a vote. And I find them very, very interesting meetings and very informative. If you'd like to watch any of those meetings, or any meeting, frankly, that we've had, you can always go to our website at any time. You can watch live on YouTube or on the cable channels, or the day following a meeting and on into eternity. You can watch our meetings at your leisure on the district website. Mrs. Bonifield is not going to be with us this evening, and Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Acosta.
Here.
Mrs. Bonifield is absent. Mr. Centers?
Here.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mrs. Bradford says here. President Burton?
Here. We have a quorum. The agendas, if you'd like to follow along with this evening's meeting, for those who are in attendance this meeting tonight in our room with us, and we do have some guests with us this evening, welcome to you. If you'd like to follow along with an agenda, you can find that on the table just outside the room. If you are watching from home, you can pick up an agenda on the website. If you are on the Livonia Public Schools website, if you go to the board tab, go to board meeting information, and you can click on tonight's meeting and get a copy of our agenda and follow along if you would like. Let's see here. This is something that we have brought to everyone's attention before each one of our meetings for some years now. It is a concerted effort of our school district that we teach our students respect. And that starts with the adults in our district, and it certainly starts with this Board of Education. We insist on respect between our students, between our adults, and between our adults and students to one another. We will absolutely be modeling that this evening, and as always, we request that anyone who is engaging with our Board of Education do the same. And we thank you for joining us in this effort to teach our children by example. And they're catching on, they're doing a great job. Let's see here. The next item on our agenda is our Pledge of Allegiance. Mrs. Bradford, would you lead us in the pledge?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on our agenda this evening is communications, item 3, and item 3A is our educators and support staff of the year. And for this, I'm going to turn this portion of the meeting over to Mrs. Jenkins.
Good evening, President Burton.
You know what, I'm sorry, Mrs.
We
Jenkins.
need to make a motion.
I'm going to, if I can interrupt you,
Oh, sure.
I apologize.
That's okay. I have my
I'm gonna-
mic off anyway.
Okay, that worked out well then. I'm going to go ahead and ask for a motion by the board, and then we'll open this up for discussion. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Bradford.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District adopt the attached resolutions for the 2020-2021 Educators and Support Staff of the Year.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bradford, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Now I'll turn it over to Mrs. Jenkins. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening once again. It is a special night in LPS, at last. Tonight it's my pleasure to present the Livonia Public Schools Educators and Support Staff of the Year for the 2020-2021 school year. Just like most things, our program has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, but we pressed forward and were able to conduct our process for the selection of the excellent staff members you will be meeting this evening. Thank you to our honorees for their patience. Hello, honorees. As we postponed this celebration a few times until we were able to celebrate in person. Before we get into the introductions, let me first describe a little bit about how we got here tonight. Back in the spring of 2020, we called for nominations from our parents, students, and staff. They came pouring in as if it were a normal school year. The nominations were all very inspiring, especially considering the current times. It has been nearly 1 year since our world changed, bringing new practices, routines, and some creative ways to remain connected with our students and families. We noticed throughout the nominations that were considered that the one commonality was relationships. Although our teachers and students had to switch to remote learning after mid-March of 2020, we saw from the nominations that they did not lose those important relationships with their students. In fact, in some cases, those relationships even strengthened under the motto that we're all in this together. Once we had our nominations, a 9-member committee read every packet, and there were quite a few of them, and met to discuss and decide who would be recognized this year. In a normal school year, this whole process is completed by November, but we are proud to say that this program has been in place for nearly 40 years, and we didn't want something like a global pandemic to stop us from carrying on that tradition. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our committee members who devoted many hours to the selection process. We could not have this program without you. In the end, we named 1 elementary educator of the year, 1 secondary educator of the year, and 1 support staff of the year. Those honorees join a long list dating back to the beginning of the original Teachers of the Year program in 1983, and their names are inscribed on the plaques in the front lobby of this building. So you make sure you stop by and check those out. Without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to this year's honorees. Due to capacity limits this evening, our guests of honor are kind of staged in what I call the green room until it's their time to be formally recognized, but I thought I would have the 3 of them join us at once to start off the program.
Excuse me, Mrs. Jenkins, could I have our honorees move a little bit to your right? Because we can only see some of you, but not all of you. Couple more steps. I think, there we go. We got all of you now. Okay, great.
Camera.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
No pressure. Our elementary educator of the year, join me in giving a round of applause for Mrs. Lorraine Giorgino. Our secondary educator of the year is Mrs. Mimi Higgins. And our support staff person of the year is Mrs. Pat Schuhart. So, as you know from previous years, there is a certain level of celebrity that comes with being recognized in this manner. This year things are a little bit different since the large crowd events that we would normally attend may not be happening this year. But nonetheless, I'm happy to serve as their agent throughout the rest of the school year. The honorees are honored or have been honored on our district website and on social media. They've been featured in the District Dialogue newsletter and also in the Livonia Today magazine, which just came out, I think, late last month. Tonight, they are each receiving special tributes from our county and state elected officials. So I'm going to try to stay on mic here, but also hand them special tributes from the state of Michigan, signed by Governor Whitmer, State Senator Dana Pohanke, State Representative Lori Pohotsky. And we have tributes from the Wayne County Board of Commissioners, signed by Wayne County Commissioner Terry Marecki, Wayne County Commissioner David Knizek, and Wayne County Commissioner Glenn Anderson. So I will step away from the mic and hand them these tributes. There you are. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. You're welcome. You got it?
Yep.
And now it's my turn to shower them with gifts, my favorite part. First, each honoree's name has been engraved on the perennial plaque that hangs in the lobby here at Central Office. Next, we have these awesome golden apples. I always like to unwrap it so the folks at home can see. These are so beautiful. And quite heavy. They're a brass apple and they're engraved with the honoree's name and the school year and their distinction as Educator of the Year or Support Staff of the Year. And finally, we've assembled some gift bags here filled with Amazon cards, Meijer gift cards, Livonia golf passes, Livonia Rec Center passes, and of course some LPS swag. We'd like to thank Livonia Parks and Recreation and, excuse me, and Meijer stores for their donations. So I'll go ahead and hand out the loot.
Your arms get pretty full by this point of the game, guys. It's a bit of a balancing act by this point.
I should have warned you to bring a tart or something here. Okay. Okay, so lucky for you, we are all set with the two of you. If you'd like to quickly drop your things off in the green room, that would be fine.
I'll take it.
Okay, or you can just set them on the table.
I'll take it. Thanks.
Thank you. And you can have a seat over here. Okay. It's so different doing it this way. Okay, so now I would like to tell you a little bit about our honorees. So sit back and enjoy. We'll start with Mrs. Giorgino. I'd like to invite Board Secretary Karen Bradford to read the special resolution that we've prepared for Mrs. Giorgino.
I'd be honored to. Thank you. Livonia Public Schools, Livonia, Michigan, resolution. Whereas the trustees of the Board of Education are desirous of recognizing and promoting excellence in education in this school district, and whereas Lorraine Giorgino, a physical education teacher at Webster Elementary and Cooper Upper Elementary, and a 27-year employee of the Livonia Public Schools, has distinguished herself by being named Elementary Educator of the Year for the 2020-2021 school district by a district-wide committee. And whereas, in achieving that recognition, it is evident that she is an exceptional educator, going far beyond the expected range of her duties to meet the needs of students, colleagues, parents, and others. And whereas, Lorraine is a dedicated and enthusiastic teacher who is creative and believes in promoting and elevating the physical health of her students as well as their social, emotional well-being by creating programming that engages and builds connections and relationships. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education do hereby commend and congratulate Lorraine Giorgino for being named Elementary Educator of the Year for the 2020-2021 school year and for the dedication and loyal service she has rendered to Livonia Public Schools, her students, and the community.
Thank you. So Lorraine, I'm going to brag a little bit more about you for a few minutes, okay? As was stated in the resolution, Lorraine Giorgino is a physical education teacher in her 27th year. She teaches at Webster Elementary and Cooper Upper Elementary. As you'll soon learn, she has the enthusiasm of a brand new educator. Mrs. Giorgino has served on a number of professional committees throughout the years, helping to fine-tune the district's physical education and health curriculum. She has created dynamic content by way of shared lessons and materials that are shared among her colleagues. She also serves on the district's wellness committee, focusing both on students and on staff. Mrs. Giorgino is also a member of SHAPE, which is the Society of Healthy and Physical Educators, both on the state and national level. In recent years, she has established a really cool program that brings together two student populations within Webster Elementary School for what is called Unified Physical Education. This unique program brings together the students from the ACAT Gifted and Talented program with the Act 18 Special Education program in a shared educational experience. From this program, Mrs. Giorgino organized a unified playdate program as well, during which students who were in special education programs at Grant and Roosevelt centers came to play and interact with Webster's Act 18 program students. In addition, Lorraine has created healthy programming for students, both during the school day and after school, with offerings such as Dance Club, the Healthy Kids Club, Building Healthy Communities, which is a program with partners Wayne State University and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. She has offered Girls on the Run, Soccer Club, and other intramural opportunities for students. She strongly believes in offering students the opportunity to participate in activities that meet their needs, keep them physically active, teaches self-management skills, and more. In her packet, she said, quote, "I want every child leaving the gym to feel like they are a game-winning athlete. I believe that through physical education, I am truly teaching the whole child." She incorporates the community with character traits that center around respectful interactions, and she raises the confidence level of her students by challenging them to challenge themselves. Webster Principal Laura Boca says Mrs. Giorgino goes out of her way to leave her positive mark throughout the school by creating posters and once even taking it upon herself to snap a photo of every single student and every single staff member at Webster standing in front of a sign she created. This sign spelled out the word kind, and the person standing in the letter I spot becomes the I in kind. She then hung these photos all around the school for some added inspiration and unity. I love that. According to colleague Christine Lakatos, Lorraine radiates positive energy in every area. She has an excellent rapport with not only all of her students, but staff as well. She volunteers to help with extracurricular activities, committees, and field trips. She supports her colleagues professionally and personally. She is thoughtful, empathetic. She's a friend, a confidant, and always eager to help or mentor. With students, she is warm and welcoming, greeting every student with enthusiasm as they enter her classroom. Even during the school closure, Lorraine stepped up even more by offering physical education virtually. She created fun and engaging activities for students, virtual lessons, and classroom meetings. She even dressed up for a virtual story time with Webster's media specialist and tweeted about the fun for all to see on social media. I'll wrap up with a short story that was shared by colleague Lauren Gershman. Lauren writes, quote, "There was a student, we will call him Billy, who was in our MOCI program. Billy used a walker and had no fingers or toes. In the past, he would arrive at gym class and cry. He had no interest in participating, despite some very convincing and supportive staff members. Lorraine accepted the challenge and bonded with Billy. Each class, she was able to connect with him to achieve baby steps. In the beginning, it was just for him not to cry during class. Soon, she would call on him to come to the circle or demonstrate something for the class with her. He trusted her and knew she would be patient with him. His tenseness began to dissipate. By the end of the year, Billy didn't just walk down the hallway to gym class with his walker, he sprinted. So I thought that would be a nice way to wrap up our tribute to Mrs. Georgino. And with that, I'd like to invite Lorraine to say a few words. And we'll press the button on your mic, right in the front.
This one?
Yep. Did it go off? Okay.
All right. Easy problem solving, all about problem solving here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me this evening. I'm so excited that we got a chance to do this in person. It's really nice. I first want to say congratulations again to Mimi and Pat. This is quite an honor. Again, I am a product of Livonia Public Schools, so I've been in Livonia Public Schools. I've had a lot of inspiring teachers. Now that I am a teacher, I've come into contact with a lot of inspiring principals, Teresa O'Brien, Laura Boca, and without them, I really wouldn't be doing the job that I do. Without Laura Boca at Webster, I wouldn't be able to do the things that I do. She's so supportive and just allows me to create and make those programs or classes or anything else I feel like we need to do as a community or as a staff or with the students. She's always there to support me, so I appreciate all of that. And I thank you to the committee. I know it was probably a lot to go through, so I thank them as well for choosing me. I thank my family for always supporting me. I know sometimes it's difficult to be children of a teacher in the same district. Sorry for all the heartaches, but thank you for always supporting me and being there to, again, help me with anything that I need help with. I'm so appreciative, and I thank you so very much for this opportunity and for all the goodies. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. So well deserved. Thank you.
Thank you to the family.
Thank you, folks. We're going to have just a moment of switching up honorees. So if you're watching from home, just bear with us for just a moment.
There's a delay in there on the screen, so you don't really know what's happening.
Oh, great. We're off by 10 seconds or so? Yeah.
I guess I could just take that one out. Hello.
Hello,
Are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Okay. Next, I would like to invite Board Trustee Madeline Acosta to join us and by reading the resolution.
Thank you. Livonia Public Schools Resolution. Whereas the trustees of the Board of Education are desirous of recognizing and promoting excellence in education in this school district, and whereas Mimi Higgins, a special education teacher at Holmes Middle School and a 22-year employee of Livonia Public Schools, has distinguished herself by being named Secondary Educator of the Year for 2020-2021 by a district-wide committee, and whereas in achieving that recognition, it is evident that she is an exceptional educator, going far beyond the expected range of her duties to meet the needs of students, colleagues, parents, and others. And whereas Mimi has shown a deep dedication to educating her students and supporting her students' growth by doing whatever it takes to reach and connect with her students through genuine interactions, time, and care. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education do hereby commend and congratulate Mimi Higgins for being named Secondary Educator of the Year for 2020-2021 and for the dedication and loyal service she has rendered to Livonia Public Schools, her students, and the community.
Thank you. I'm a crier.
Well, then get ready. Yeah.
Let's do this.
This could be messy.
Where's my people?
Okay. As was stated in the resolution, Mimi Higgins is a special education teacher at Holmes Middle School and has been with Livonia Public Schools for 22 years. Mrs. Higgins has served at various levels and various capacities as a special education teacher, a co-teacher, and caseload provider. She has co-taught with more than 50 different and amazing teachers in all subject areas. She has served as department chair at Holmes and left her mark at Riley by creating a service club with students in a peer mediation program. She even spent some time co-coaching track and cross country. I love that.
With Lorraine.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't
that's
know that. That's neat. Mimi was instrumental in the development of the district's Community with Character initiative, and she, along with her husband, created the graphics and logo that are still used today. In her community, she has worked with Habitat for Humanity, served as a youth group leader at her church, and was involved in her children's school PTAs. She has also served as a mentor to numerous young adults in her community. She is mom of 4 sons and grandma to 5 granddaughters. Her teaching philosophy is simple. She says, quote, "My students are honestly some of the bravest, most amazing people on the planet. They are vulnerable and worthy and deserving of a teacher who is willing to advocate for them, walk with them, share and cry with them, laugh and teach them. They deserve a teacher who sees all that they can be and all that they are. I believe that when we are in relationships with our students, it provides the pinhole of light they need to illuminate a room." Mimi was so eloquent in her packet, I need to quote directly once again. I really enjoyed your writing, Mimi. When speaking of her students, she said, quote, "I am the sum of all of them. Every student I've had has had an impact on my life. They continue to teach me to be reflective of where they are and where they're going. Their stories remind me that empathy is always the best policy. They remind me that relationships that are genuine really do matter and make a difference in their lives." Mrs. Higgins forms those relationships so naturally and genuinely that she still maintains those connections years and sometimes even decades later, after her students have moved on. In fact, she's finding that now she's teaching the children of students who were in her classes some 20 years ago. There are many, many stories of former students who continue to stay in contact with Mimi to let her know that they've made it, just like she said that they would. Just recently, Mrs. Higgins informed Holmes Middle School Principal Deanne Urso that she heard from a former student who Ms. Urso may have recalled teaching as a 6th grader. This student is now 34 years old. Mimi planned to stop by his home after work to wish him well as he prepared to leave for the armed forces.
Wow.
She has gone well out of her way for her students, including a former student named Matt. She provided a means for him to get braces on his teeth, a varsity jacket for playing baseball, and most importantly, the confidence he needed to realize that he had so much potential. In a letter to Mrs. Higgins, he writes, when all I was surrounded by was my dysfunctional family and my own negative thoughts, you came into my life, so positive and so reasonable, and showed me that I was different from my family and there was a solution to almost any problem. I am proud of the person I am, and without your guidance, I am certain I would not be the same person I am today. You have taught me to be reasonable and kind, and that there is always a solution." The examples can go on and on. Mimi believes that her students are more than the sum of their quizzes and grades, that she wants them to experience joy, to find a profession in which they know they're making a difference in the world. She holds her students to these goals and lets them know that she will always be there, waiting for them to let her know down the road that she was right in believing in them. According to Ms. Deanne Urso, respectful interactions define Mimi's whole being. This is not a job for Mimi. It is a way of life for her. Those who have had the pleasure to work with her and learn from her are truly better for it. She exudes warmth, passion, and dedication. She is quick with a smile, a hug, a song, and a laugh, which is so important for the soul. In her students, she discovers that hidden talent fosters a curious mind, makes that connection with the student, and through an inside joke or anything that will make that child feel seen, according to colleague Tia Sandria. Tia says, quote, "She uncovers the best in people and polishes it with care, making it shine bright so that others can finally see the shimmer she knew was there all along." And with that, I will turn it over to Mrs. Higgins, if you'd like to say a few words.
I've got to catch my breath. I have to really catch my breath.
Take your time.
Hang on. This is such an honor to be given an award for something that I love, for working with kids that I adore and with people that I respect so much. I'm incredibly thankful for my sweet husband and two of my 4 sons that are here, who are always willing to listen to my relentless stories and are the truest part of this journey that I've been on. I'm thankful for all of the amazing staff members that I've worked with over the years. Super thankful for Deanne, who has been such a balancing force in the last couple years. For these teachers that have such incredible energy and put forth amazing time into seeing and reaching the best kids and the most difficult kids. But truly, I'm most thankful for the students who teach me. These kids that are resilient and kind and thoughtful and full of grit, and the way that they teach me to see that the world is such a lovely place in such a unique way, in a way that they're only able to do. I am eternally grateful that I'm a part of this community of teachers and of students, and I'm so thankful that I've had an opportunity to play a role in their lives and that I'll continue to play a role in their lives. And I know that I'm a better teacher because of the lessons that I've learned from them, but more than that, a better person. I told you I'm a crier. And I'm only the teacher that I am because of all of those reasons. So thank you.
Before you sneak off, hold on a moment, and we are going to have to come back to Lorraine because we did get a quick transition. Are there any questions or comments from our superintendent or our board members? Mrs. Okus?
Yes. Well, what an honor to have both Lorraine and Mimi here this evening, but because Mimi is here in front of us, as you can tell, she is a very, very special individual. And she has truly made an indelible impact on the hearts and the minds of the students with whom she worked. But as importantly, she has that effect on her colleagues around her and on all of us. She was truly instrumental in our community with character work, as was her wonderful husband, who helped create and really bring pencil to paper to some very, very important and foundational ideas about how we believe we need to treat one another. And Mimi's work in that will live on for many, many years. But beyond that, she is a living example of that each and every day. And we could not ask for more. So thank you, Mimi.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from board members? Okay. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for being patient, and for the families for being patient in this modified version of how we're celebrating this evening. But we're so glad that you've been able to be with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for joining us.
And for those at home, if you'll be patient with us for a moment, we're doing another switch of our honorees. We are very serious about health and safety in our boardroom and with numbers of people in the room, which is why we're having a little bit of a shift of folks in and out to make certain that we are keeping our numbers safe. Mrs. Jenkins.
Okay, thank you, President Burton. Last but not least, it's my pleasure to introduce our support staff of the year. This is Pat Schuhart. At this time, before we kick it off, I'd like to ask President Burton if she'd please read the resolution into the record.
Absolutely. Livonia Public Schools, Livonia, Michigan, March 22nd, 2021 resolution. Whereas the trustees of the Board of Education are desirous of recognizing and promoting excellence in education in this school district, and whereas Pat Schuhart, Supervisor of Food and Nutrition Services for the Livonia Public Schools, and a 9-year employee of the Livonia Public Schools, has distinguished herself by being named Support Staff Member of the Year for 2020, the 2021 school year by a district-wide committee. And whereas in achieving that recognition, it is evident that Pat is an exceptional employee, going far beyond the expected range of her duties to meet the needs of students, colleagues, parents, and others. Whereas Pat displays a tireless dedication to serving the nutritional needs of our students and has shown that commitment especially well during this pandemic, providing a first ever curbside food distribution for families and food pickup programs for the district's remote learners. Now therefore be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education do hereby commend and congratulate Pat Schuhart for being named Support Staff Member of the Year for 2020-2021 and for the dedication and loyal service that she has rendered to Livonia Public Schools, to her students, and to the community.
Thank you, President Burton. As was stated in the resolution, Pat is a 9-year employee of Livonia Public Schools and serves in the role of supervisor in the Food and Nutrition Services Department. She is a member of the School Nutrition Association and School Nutrition Association of Michigan. She has completed the Leadership Academy through the SNAM, and she holds a Safe Serve certification. The phrase unsung hero immediately comes to mind when considering the excellent work performed by Pat. Her day-to-day work may be behind the scenes, but the result of her work is very much front and center in the lives of our students. Her skills and dedication were particularly impressive during this pandemic. When schools were closed last spring, Pat sprung into action to develop a plan for the first ever drive-through food pickup program for families in our community. She ensured that the food supply was sufficient, which was much more difficult of a task than one might imagine during that particular time. More than 264,000 meals were distributed during that springtime closure in 2020. This came at a time when many families were without work and quickly losing confidence that they would be able to provide for their families. I personally was brought to tears seeing the line of vehicles on Joy Road backed all the way east to Middlebelt, waiting in line to receive the free meals that were being distributed at Franklin High School. It was quite a sight to see. Pat's supervisor, Operations Director Phil Francis, had this to say about Pat in his nomination. She is a role model for those in her department and for all of us who have worked with her. she will not ask anyone to do anything that she is not willing to do herself, which helps to rally people around her efforts. I believe everyone, students, parents, and staff, need to know the lengths she has been going through to feed every child who wants a meal. Through countless obstacles and potential roadblocks, Pat always found a way to hit the mark and provide the needed meals for our students and families. Mr. Francis notes that she remained positive while facing adversity, including product shortages, unknown demand, changing vendors, and a workforce that was at home while she was on the work site every day. In fact, Colleen Sandy Eisbrenner, who works at Roosevelt Elementary School, notes that even a fractured bone didn't keep Pat down. Sandy says even after an accident, fracturing her leg, she was still in the office every day or at the food bagging facility, limping around, putting out fires, and keeping the supply going. Talk about grit. And her good work continues. Our district was recently able to sign on to the grant program that provides free breakfast and lunch for all students. While potentially posing a significant challenge, Pat had no trouble making this happen. Here is a neat tidbit that was submitted by colleague Dawn Testani, who works at Churchill High School. She said Pat, in a non-COVID year, will allow students to learn about safe food handling procedures, food prep and service, and how to work in a busy school kitchen. Dawn said, quote, "These students look forward to coming into the kitchen and working with us, so much so that one of the students who was home on virtual learning called Churchill High School, and the call was transferred to the kitchen just so that student could check in on us."
That's cute.
This year, and during a normal school year, Pat also assists families with federal food assistance program paperwork. She responds to parents' concerns about specific food allergies or sensitivities. She trains staff. She ensures all government regulations are followed. She collaborates across all departments in the district to keep the Food and Nutrition Services Department running smoothly. All of this with the goal that all 23 school kitchens run smoothly and provide excellent customer service. Pat's colleague, Deborah Marlette, also nominated Pat for this recognition. And she had this to say about Pat. Her knowledge and guidance allow the food service staff to work in a positive environment, which in turn reflects our interactions with the students. This is Pat's goal, to have her kitchen staff have a positive impact on students with a smile, a friendly greeting, and a meal. Mr. Francis notes, quote, "Pat leads a large and loving team into combat against the challenge of an empty belly. While the students may not know her name, it's her leadership of a department that plays an integral role in providing our students to learn every morning and every afternoon that makes her so deserving of this award." And with that, I'd like to offer a round of applause for Ms. Buell. And also invite you to say a few words.
Okay. Thank you to the Board of Education and Superintendent Olquist. This award is very special to me because I feel that it gives recognition to our whole food service department. I've been very blessed to have a great food service employees, and we all share the same vision. We do what we do for the well-being of our children because we all know a well-fed child is a better learner. I know how fortunate I am to have two women in my office, Beth and Deb, who support and work and keep everything rolling. When the pandemic hit, what I did not know is I was going to be challenged to distribute 25,000 meals each week without the help of food service staff. Here's what I learned. Phil Francis knows how to work a pallet jack as we unloaded food trucks. Jen Terrio could commission her family to build wooden racks to put plastic bags on in a week's time. I was pretty impressed with that. I watched our superintendent move milk in the back of her vehicle from one site to the other. I saw a lot of the board members show up and help pack meals. All this because everyone cares about our kids being fed. A month after we started distributing food, the food service staff were allowed to come back to work on a sign-up basis. Even though there was an uncertainty for them coming back into the buildings, there was not 1 week that we did not have a full sign-up list. So you see, for me to be surrounded by everyone, all of you, all of my staff that cares so much about the kids, but for me to be the one to be recognized is truly an honor. I would also like to say, shouldn't look it up. Thank you to my husband, Dan, who probably knows as much about USD regulations as I do. Not that he wants to, but sometimes I have a hard time turning it off at night, and he gets to hear it. So, thank you all so much.
Do we have questions or comments from our superintendent or our board members? Mrs. Oquist?
Yes, thank you. I really cannot wait to share the praises for Mrs. Schuhart. She is an absolute rock star with a heart of gold and a passion and a dedication that we could only, wish to replicate in every corner of our community. In a normal year, Pat has a full job in a normal year. We have 23 schools, we have staffs at every school, different needs of every child. She works tirelessly to make sure that families in need have avenues for support. That's in a normal year. In a pandemic year, she had our rollout ready to go by March 16th. We were ready to go from day one. She organized and ordered, and I don't know how many 6 a.m. deliveries she accepted, maybe earlier, and how many late night orders she made. But when you think about the number of meals, Pat was responsible for ordering every single item, for coordinating and making sure that we were still meeting all of the food and nutrition guidelines, training any of our volunteers, and we had so grateful to so many staff who just stepped up throughout that process. And each time we put out a call for volunteers, we had more than we could imagine. And Pat literally handled it with such grace and such ease, while I'm sure fluttering, beneath the surface. And then, once we got that rolling, she began to make sure that our families in Livonia Virtual also had the meals, and when we were in our remote shutdown, worked with transportation to have food delivered to individual homes throughout that process. And so not each one of those things was just yet another hurdle that she met easily, but with tremendous effort. And then, again, just recently, as Mrs. Jenkins mentioned, the Universal Meals Program, I would like to note, with no additional staff on her team, she was able to, and we've increased the number of both breakfast and lunch offered, which means that many more children are serviced at the schools. So, Pat, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we admire you.
Thank you.
Are there comments or questions from other board members? Mr. Centers?
I just want to take a minute to, recognize all three, Pat, Lorraine, Mimi. I've reflected on this a lot, that I think this has to be the most challenging year in the history of Livonia Public Schools. And
Mr. Centers, can I interrupt you for just a moment?
Yeah.
Are Mimi and Lorraine still here? And if so, could we bring them back in?
No, they've
Oh, they have, okay, sorry.
No problem.
With this shuffling of honorees, it's trying to get everyone to hear these nice comments. Mr. Centers, go ahead, thank you.
So, most certainly, I think the most challenging year we've ever had. And our community is so fortunate to have people like Pat and Mimi and Lorraine. They have made tangible differences in people's lives. You have to be a special person to be an educator. And, we've heard stories all year of how people have been flexible. They've done things differently. They've been out of their comfort zone. They've gone way above and beyond. And we're going to get through this. the lights at the end of the tunnel. And the reason we're going to get through this is because a lot of really special people did really special things. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for everything you've done this year. We, as a district, should be really proud. This is, I think we'll all look back and really appreciate all that was done once the smoke has cleared, if you will. So I just wanted to say thank you. We honored 3 really special people here tonight. There are other teachers and support staff who have done really special things this year too, that I also wanted to acknowledge, because it has been a tremendous year, and I'm very inspired to be part of this board and just the things our staff has done over and over again.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I had the opportunity to speak with a community member during the pandemic, in some of the earlier stages, and this person really thought that the only thing that happens at school was teaching in the classrooms, or that was the big crescendo, and anything else really wasn't seen. And I had the opportunity to explain to that individual some of the support services that go on, some of the social work, some of the occupational and physical therapy that goes on, and nutrition services. And really to be able to explain exactly as you said, Pat, a child can't learn if he or she is hungry. Regardless of the reason why that child is hungry, we have a hungry child in front of us. And your services and the leadership that you provide for the entire team allows that child to learn, and that's replicated over and over. I heard something just within the last week is something, and I will paraphrase it, but for a certain number of people, the way they show love to others is by feeding them. And you love 14,000 students in this district by feeding so very many of them. And in so doing, allow them to learn and grow. So thank you so much. Your efforts, as Mr. Centers has said, so many of our employees have gone so far above and beyond. Yours is in a very tangible way. I saw the same thing, Stacy, that you did. Literally the line of hundreds of cars waiting to be fed. Thank you. Your efforts are physically tangible every single day. So thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Alrighty. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We do have a motion. Thank you for reminding me. We get so excited about our resolutions and our honorees that we do forget sometimes there's a piece of business attached to that. We do have a motion by Mrs. Bradford, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. And Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bradford says yes. Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta.
Yes.
Mr. Centers.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
President Burton.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is item 3B, Read Across America Resolution. And may I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mr. Centers.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District adopt the attached resolution in recognition of Read Across America during the month of March 2021.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mr. Johnson. And let's see here. Sorry, bear with me for just a moment while our technology catches up. Mrs. Jenkins, would you like to address us on this item?
Yes, thank you, President Burton.
Thank you.
I think we'll kick it off by inviting Priscilla David to join me at the table. Priscilla is the president of the Livonia Educators Association, and our special guest for this item. Good evening.
Good evening. And as we said, it's wonderful to see one another in person again.
Yes, it is.
It's been way too long.
Okay, celebrating March's Reading Month is always so much fun in our school district. It's a time for special guest readers. Still fun, although most of those visits were over Zoom this year. It's a time when students have special spirit days, dressing up as their favorite book characters, donning their colorful Read t-shirts, building forts. This was a new one I noticed this year. Building a fort over their desks and reading under their desks, so they're in a little fort, which I thought was really clever, yeah. The fun never stops during March's Reading Month. While some of the traditional activities, such as the big Battle of the Books events, some book parades, and in-person guest readers may look a little different this year, one thing has not changed, and that is our love of reading. Tonight we're celebrating March's Reading Month by designating March 2nd, 2021, which is Dr. Seuss's birthday, as Read Across America Day, as declared by the National Education Association. As is our tradition here in LPS, we have prepared a resolution to officially place the designation on the record. And I'd like to invite Trustee Dan Centers to read that resolution.
Thank you. Whereas citizens of the Livonia Public Schools School District stand firmly committed to promoting reading as the catalyst for our students' future academic success, their preparation for America's jobs of the future, and their ability to compete in a global economy. And whereas Read Across America, a national celebration of Dr. Seuss's 117th birthday on March 2nd, 2021, is sponsored by the Livonia Education Association in cooperation with the National Education Association, and promotes reading and adult involvement in the education of our community's students. And whereas motivating children to read is an important factor in student achievement in creating lifelong successful readers. And whereas research has shown that children who are motivated and spend more time reading do better in school. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District call upon their citizens to assure that every child is reading together with a caring adult throughout the month of March, designated as March's Reading Month, celebrated today, March 22nd, 2021, with the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education, and be it further resolved that this body recommits our community to engage in programs and activities to make America's children the best readers in the world.
Thank you, Trustee Centers. Okay, take it over.
This one? Oh.
It was a learning curve for all of us, too.
President Burton, Superintendent Oakwist, and school board members. I'd like to start out by reading a brief passage from a book I am currently reading. That day, Mama said, "Your schooling is your voice, child. It will be speaking for you even if you didn't open your mouth to talk." That day, I tell myself that even if I am not getting anything in this life, I will go to school. Because I don't just want to be having any kind of voice. I want a louding voice. In this book, The Girl with the Louding Voice, and in another, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, I found two young people who early on realized the wealth contained in books. Did we ever think, though, that here in America, we would yearn for our classrooms, for reading and sharing the information and wisdom available in the books we find in our schools? On behalf of the Livonia Education Association, I am here to express our support for the Read Across America resolution before the school board. Learning in person, holding and enjoying books, both in the past taken for granted, have become things to treasure. So we encourage all our LPS parents to take your children on an adventure. Share a good belly laugh. Marvel at the artistic beauty of the world around us simply by reading and enjoying a book together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have questions or comments from board members? Mrs. Bradford?
Thank you, President Burton. I just want to say that was lovely, Mrs. David, and so on point. I love March, the month of March, just specifically for March is Reading Month, and I know a number of us board members have been able to read across the district in various capacities, and what a delight it is. And I must tell you, most of these kids, they're voracious readers. I mean, just from the work that I have seen, they love to read, and I think this is just such a special month, and what better support than to pass this resolution. So congratulations to all the readers, and read even if it's not the month of March. Keep reading.
Thank you. Any other comments from the Superintendent? Mrs. Oquist?
Thank you so much to our board for passing this important resolution, and for Mrs. David for being here with us this evening and sharing that important message. It really has been an exciting month, and I have to say we've seen once again the creativities of our teachers, of our principals, and of our PTAs as they've recreated March's Reading Month this year in a little different way. So I want to not only acknowledge our teachers, but we have Mandy here this evening, who's our PTSA Council President, and is representative of amazing parent volunteers across this district. They have really found ways to do March's Reading Month a little differently this year, but make it no less special for our readers. So thank you to our teachers, to our principals, and to our PTA volunteers for really encouraging our students during this month to capture the essence of a great story and what adventure, as Mrs. David said, that can take you on. So congratulations to all of our readers out there, and keep it going.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I'd just like to thank those who are involved in the March's Reading Month effort, especially in our elementary schools, who have gone above and beyond in finding ways to allow many of us to still participate. It has been our joy to read via Zoom, even though we would much rather walk into classrooms, but it's been a lot of fun, and we appreciate the efforts that so many folks in so many of our schools have gone to allow us still to continue to get into the schools and sit with our kids, even if it's over a camera, and share a book and a story together. So thank you so much. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mr. Johnson, and Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. President Johnson, or Burton. I
It's
knew I was
okay.
going to do it.
It's all right. Yes, thank you.
President Burton, thank you.
And motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 3D, district updates from the superintendent, Mrs. Oquist.
Thank you so much. One moment. Alrighty, well, I am going to start sharing, and then we will bring up the technology. We have had a very busy month, and I'm going to start with just sharing a quick wrap-up of some of our winter sports. If you can believe it, today was the kickoff of spring athletic season, but I just want to take a moment and congratulate all of our athletes and coaches for their hard work in which was a very, very challenging season without question. But I'd want to certainly acknowledge some of our teams who are heading on to postseason action or have already done so. Our Franklin Palm team finished 5th in states. We had the Palm competition this past Saturday. Livonia Red Gymnastics is heading to the states competition. So congratulations to Livonia Red, which are gymnasts from both Franklin and Churchill. Also in postseason action, we have 2 cheer teams heading on to regionals tomorrow evening. Both Churchill Cheer and Stevenson Cheer made it through conferences this weekend and are headed to regionals. Congratulations to them and many, many good wishes. Also heading on to states are bowlers from both Churchill High School, Alex Mackey and Aaron Smalley. They are headed to states after both scoring in the top 10 out of 74 high school bowlers. And at Franklin, we have Ken Cloth and Ian Kane, who are also headed to the state championship. And I just have to say, our bowling teams, both our boys and girls bowling teams, have just really come onto the scene so strong and so successfully. And once again, just thank you to our board for your support in adding this activity for our students. It has just been so well received, and our students have done very, very well. Also headed off in postseason action, we have 2 wrestlers from Stevenson, Quincy Salter and Dylan Kushel, who are moving on to the state championship, and we have 11 from Franklin. Franklin, they were our district champs, and we have a record 11 wrestlers who have qualified for regionals. Also states-bound are Stevenson Boys Swim and Dive. They were city champs, KLAA East champs, and state qualifiers. We wish them the very, very best. You're all very familiar with Mr. Mark Haig. He was recently recognized for completing 25 years of service in the state as an athletic director. So we received word of that from the state organization for athletic directors and congratulated him on his very distinguished career thus far. Many of you are familiar with DECA. Our Stevenson DECA members competed in the State Career Development Conference. We had many students who were awarded overall finalists for their event area. We also had one student, Sophia Schlotterbeck, who was qualified to compete at the International Career Development Conference in April. So congratulations to all of our DECA participants. They put forth a great deal of effort in preparation for that competition, and we always have students who continue to do very, very well. Jackson Center has been named one of the brightest and best. Jackson Early Childhood Center is a top 3 finalist in the Detroit Free Press Best of the Best contest. There will be an Oscar-style awards program held virtually on April 15th. So we'd like to congratulate the wonderful staff and families at our Jackson Early Childhood Center. Certainly no surprise that they are being recognized for their efforts. And we are now on to having, I'm headed just a couple more slides forward. And then we'll go back and we're going to show you some of the pictures of those great students that we talked about earlier. But we're sharing here some staff who enjoyed a full day of professional development on Friday. We had staff across the district participating in delving into data dialogues, in creating common assessments, in looking at a wide variety of learning strategies to support our students both academically in the social emotional realm. So we'll share some pictures here of our wonderful staff, again, who utilized the day well on Friday. We can move forward to the next couple of pictures as we share just some highlights, and certainly always good to have a break in there with a few treats to sustain us during a full day of learning. So just as it is so important for our students to continue to be learners, it is essential for our staff to have that time as well, and they certainly made good use of it this past Friday. So we want to highlight a wonderful series that has been coordinated by our student assistance providers and at both the middle school and the high school level. They're doing a series called Thursdays to Thrive. The first one, it's a virtual series that will take place from 6:30 to 7 p.m., so just a short 30-minute commitment that we would ask of our parents. It really is meant to be a support to our parents as they cover a wide variety of topics that have been identified as areas of most interest or greatest need for information from our parents. So the first one is this Thursday. Our guest speaker will be Karen Bonanno from Livonia Save Our Youth organization. Many of you are familiar with both Mrs. Bonanno as well as the wonderful organization Livonia Save Our Youth. She will be talking about spring break safety, and certainly that's a timely topic as we head into break next week. There are 4 other topics. We have, let me see, careers in the world of work. We also have, I'm going to enlarge this. We also have topics with our school social workers with regard to school anxiety and stress, as well as anxiety and depression. So if you would like to take a look at our website, www.livoniapublicschools.org, there's information on how to register. And again, they're virtual, 4 Thursdays in a row beginning this Thursday. And of course, we will not have one during spring break. We'll pick up after that. So thank you to our student assistance providers at the middle school and high school for planning this excellent series and a resource for our parents. Last week, our secondary parents received a number of emails. I'm sure Mrs. Acosta can attest to that. We shared a great deal of information from our district, and we'd like to thank our team, led by Mr. Willenberg and Mrs. Jenkins, for getting all of those communications out to our families. So families should have received 2 very important emails. One highlighted information about next school year, both the student day, the start times, as well as offerings for Livonia virtual or in person. Following that email on Friday was another detailed email with regard to a selection form that we are asking every parent who has a child in grades 6 through 11 to complete. It's very quick. It literally is your child's name, grade, school, and whether or not you will be selecting in person or Livonia virtual for them. We would really ask that you take time to look through each of the pieces of information in the Livonia virtual section prior to selecting that year-long choice for your child. So again, in the email that came home on Friday, that information is also housed on our district website, or please contact your child's school. We will be happy to resend that to you. There is detailed information with regard to the Livonia virtual program offerings for next year, which have many similarities, but also some significant differences from this year. So there is a chart that highlights this year and next year's offerings. Thank you to our board for making the suggestions that you did last week in our committee of the whole. We hoped that we were able to incorporate many of those elements in our communications to parents. So we'd really encourage our parents of secondary students to take a look at those 2 important emails, and please submit a form for your child. As of this morning, we have received about 2,500 of our 6,500 secondary students. So we would like to, we appreciate all those who have hopped on already and made their selections, and we would like to have those in by April 6th so that we can begin the very complex staffing and scheduling process. If you have a unique situation, a unique medical situation, there were a couple of individual situations where folks thought they may need a little bit more time or were uncertain about their choice, please contact your child's principal and we would be happy to work with you. Otherwise, we would ask if you would send that in by April 6th. We will go ahead and get started planning in earnest for next year. Another important element is a COVID testing site that will be set up for the end of spring break. We have volunteered to partner with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. As you know, our community is very, very desirous of keeping our students healthy and safe, as well as their families, our staff, and our school community. We have seen an increase in cases in our community, in our county, and in the state. We understand that activity may increase over spring break, and we simply want to be sure that before students return on Monday, that you have an opportunity to be tested. This is open to students, their families, or any staff member in the district. There will be sites on both Saturday, the end of spring break, April 3rd, as well as Sunday. We will be hosting one in Livonia on Saturday from 12 to 7 p.m. Families can pre-register. We'll be sending out all that information to our families. There's a QR code as well as a website link. You can pre-register, and we would really ask, please consider having your child and your entire family go through the process. Again, you can pre-register. It is well-planned and it will be well-planned and well-executed, run by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. We will be a testing site on Saturday. Northville High School, which is again very close by, will be a testing site on Sunday. So for folks who may not be in town until Sunday, yes, that's Easter Sunday, and yes, they will be open. We will also have sites running at Wayne County RESA and at Edsel Ford High School in Dearborn on Monday. So really, we would strongly encourage families to please consider having your child and or your family go through this process before we return from spring break. It is so important that if a child or a student may have been exposed, that we're able to catch that as early as possible before that impacts other students who then have to close contact quarantine. So again, we will be sharing this information widely with our school community, but we are very happy to provide this service to our families and hope it will be a convenient option for them. As we've shared, as of March 1st, we have begun offering universal breakfast and lunch service to any students. This program will continue throughout the school year, and we are so pleased with the increase in access to meals that we have seen both at breakfast and at lunch across each school in the district. So again, just a reminder to families listening, you do not have to qualify for free and reduced lunch status in order to receive this. Any child has access to a free breakfast or a free lunch at their school any day of the week, and that's available to you. You do not have to pre-register for that. You simply have to come through the line and gain access to those meals, and we are thrilled to see the number of students that have been coming through for that. And again, a shout out to our Food and Nutrition Services Department who have handled that increase without any additional staffing, but have just worked on that like champs, so we appreciate it. Just a couple more pieces of information. We have been pleased to share information nights, virtual information nights for our community. We have held 2 of them. We have one more on Wednesday, April 14th. It's a riveting evening. We are usually done in about 30 to 40 minutes. You are able to follow on our YouTube channel and submit any questions to lpsbond@livoniapublicschools.org. As you know, we have a very important election for our district on Tuesday, May 4th. Very impactful for our next step forward to plan, protect, and provide for the students entrusted to us. So again, please join us for this informational series, and also continue to look for information that we will continue to send between now and the election to help inform our community about this important campaign. That is it for this evening, but if we could just hop up very quickly, I would just like to share those wonderful smiles and those hardworking students that we talked about earlier. That's all righty, thank you. So again, we'll just do a quick share of Stevenson hockey with their parents on senior night, our Franklin bowling team, one of our wonderful POM teams, and Livonia Red Gymnastics. 2 of our high school cheer teams heading on to regionals tomorrow night, and good luck to them. And again, some of our bowlers that are headed to states. And we unfortunately do not have a picture of our wrestlers from Stevenson, but we wish them the very best, as well as on the next slide, our Franklin wrestlers as well. And there are our boys swim and dive state qualifiers from Livonia Stevenson. Of course, Mr. Mark Haig, wonderful athletic director. So thank you so much. Just wanted to be sure we shared those with our community, and certainly, without question, they're proud parents and coaches. Thank you, President Burton.
Thank you. Mrs. Oquist, I had a quick question. On the Thursdays to Thrive, is that for the parents on Thursdays, 4 weeks at 6:30? Is that an in-person or a virtual activity? Do you know?
They're all virtual.
All virtual, okay. And would this be on the website later if a parent couldn't attend at that time but wanted to view it at a later date?
Let me phone a friend. Yes, we can make that happen.
Okay, we can make that terrific. Those are such important topics and things that we keep hearing requests for over and over, that if we could have that on our website, that would be fabulous.
Absolutely.
And again, just to reiterate, the COVID testing is for any family member, or any students, or any staff or their family members. You certainly are welcome to come to the Livonia site at Stevenson on that Saturday, but you're also welcome to access any of the other schools, Northville on Sunday, Wayne Risa, or at Edsel Ford on Monday. It does not cost anything, but we would certainly rather have you test ahead of time. And that's, I assume, even if they are asymptomatic, but if anyone has traveled, we are encouraging folks to get tested before they come back into school.
Traveled or had a lot of activity over break, really in for no reason, just
If you've
to
gone
come
to
through
Kroger,
as another,
that counts. Yeah.
it's an important mitigation measure.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Mrs. Bradford and then Mrs. Zacosta?
Yeah, regarding the COVID testing, you said do you have to pre-register, or is that, I know you said you have to pre-register, or can you just drive up any of those times?
That's a great question, both. If you pre-register, you're ready to go, you'll have your information on your phone and you'll be able to get right through. If not, there will be forms or access to a QR code.
Perfect, thank you.
Mrs. Zacosta?
Thank you. Along those lines, so if our LPS families go to Northville High School, do they have to present identification or something of that sort?
They do not.
Okay.
The MDHHS is really trying to make this as available as possible and as widespread as possible. They're going to have 30 to 40 testing sites in the Metro Detroit area the last weekend of spring break and into that next week.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, President Barrett. Mrs. Oquist, what's the turnaround time on the test? Do they have any idea?
Yes, it'll be 15 to 30 minutes for the the COVID antigen test, the rapid test. And if you are able to leave, if they contact you with a positive result on that, they will give you some type of indication that you'll be able to come back to that site, bypass the line, and go right through and get a PCR test, which will be sent off.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So again, no cost. You can pre-register, but you don't need to pre-register. It's open for staff, students, and any family member. If anyone has done anything out of the norm of their normal day-to-day life today over break, please take advantage of that and just be safe. You don't need to be symptomatic. We'd rather be absolutely sure that you and your family members are safe and healthy before anyone walks back into school again.
And I'll just mention this very quickly because this is so important, and we really do hope that students and families take advantage of this. But they have done this, this company has done this all over the country. They have done this in at least 8 other states. They have this down to a science. It will move very rapidly. They will have no problem turning over at least 1,000 people per site. So please don't let that keep you away. They have no intention of having people wait for hours in line. They expect that they will be able to very rapidly move folks through.
Excellent. Okay, great. If Mrs. Oquist, if anyone has any questions on that, who should they contact, or how should that question be handled?
They can contact my office, and we'll be sure, if we can't answer the question, we'll get them to the right person.
Okay, great. Thank you. That wraps up district updates from the superintendent, I assume. Okay, great. It's been a busy time. All righty. The next item on our agenda is item 3D, written communications. I do not have any written communications. Does any other board member have written communications to share? Seeing none, we are on to item 3E, which is audience communications. And get right to it. As a reminder, audience communications are limited to 3 minutes per person. This is in order to make certain that we are equitable to everybody, that we have the same opportunity for all folks and not more for one than to another. Again, the purpose of audience communications is for the Board of Education to listen to our community members. It is not designed to be a question and answer session, but rather a listening time. At this time, I'd like to also remind folks of the role of the Board of Education. The role of the board is threefold primarily, and that is to hire and evaluate our superintendent, to set our long-term goals or strategic plans for the district and to match our finances to those goals, and to set policies for the district. So if an audience member is requesting a response, if the question deals with one of those 3 areas, you can expect a response back from the Board of Education. If it's on any other topic, which frequently it is, and that's fine, then you can expect your response to come from a member of our administrative team, whoever would be most appropriate. At this time, we do have one blue slip for audience communication, and that is from Mandy Gerstenbrand. And Mandy, if you'd like to come forward and have a seat, there's a chair and a microphone. And if you can just, hello there, if you can just tap that, make sure that that's got a green light on, then you can be heard.
Good to go.
Okay, terrific.
Good evening. I think I've
Welcome.
met most, if not all of you. Liz, you look vaguely familiar, once or twice over the years. My name is Mandy Gerstenbrand. I am currently serving as Livonia PTSA Council President. I'm here tonight to share positive news with you for the Board of Education, as well as the LPS community in Livonia and Westland. In recent years, the council has had a renewed effort in the area of advocacy. At our February meeting, Superintendent Oquist, along with Mr. Francis and Mrs. Smith, gave council leaders, but also PTA leaders from across the district, an informational presentation on the bond, followed by a lengthy Q&A. And we just wanted to publicly thank you for taking the time to do that. I'm happy to announce that at our most recent council meeting on March 17th, we voted unanimously to support the bond. We took this action because we recognize the importance of the bond, the key role it plays in funding our schools. The last bond in 2013 resulted in significant improvements. It didn't address everything, nor was it intended to. And this new bond will allow us to continue to strengthen and improve the educational experience for our students. As stakeholders, PTA members across our 22 units are intimately familiar with and have a clear understanding of the needs that this bond will address. We support the bond because it will address critical infrastructure needs, enhancing technology, safety, and expanding educational opportunities for our students. These are important items that can only help LPS to retrain and attract new families. We feel strong schools and strong communities go hand in hand. That's why we wholeheartedly support the zero tax rate increase bond proposal. Council encourages our members and the LPS community to support the approval of this ballot proposal and to please vote yes on May 4th or by absentee between now and May 4th. So I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your comments this evening.
Thank you.
Are there any other audience members who would like to address the board this evening? Seeing none, we will go on to next item. Item 3F is response to prior audience communications. I do not have any prior audience communication to respond to. Brings us to the next item on our agenda, which is item 4, our consent agenda. And may I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Jarvis.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the following consent agenda items as recommended by the superintendent. 5A, minutes of the regular meeting of February 22nd, 2021. 5B, minutes of the special meeting of February 22nd, 2021. 5C, minutes of the closed session of February 22nd, 2021. 7A, approval of cooperative agreements for Livonia Career Technical Center. And 7B, approval of cooperative agreements for Livonia Transition Program.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mr. Centers. Questions or comments on consent agenda? Seeing none, Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Centers.
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. President Burton.
Yes, the motion passes. That brings us to item 6, instruction matters, and 6A is approval to purchase mobile devices for students. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mr. Johnson.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the purchase of 405 Dell Chromebooks for students who have a non-school issued device at home but are not able to bring the device to school for a total cost of $159,975.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. And Mrs. O'Brien, I believe you'll be helping us with that this evening.
Yes, thank you, President Burton. We have secured grant funds from the elementary and secondary school emergency funds. This grant targeted materials and services to reduce the digital divide. Our grant application was approved, and we will be able to purchase 405 Dell Chromebooks from Presidio, and students will be using them in our schools for students who already have a device at home but will not be bringing one back and forth, so that we have enough for them during the school day. This grant was for $160,000 that we were approved for, and this purchase is for $159,975.
Are there questions or comments from members of the board? And as mentioned earlier in the meeting, this is one of the topics that we discussed at length at our prior meeting, so I think we've gotten most of the questions out of the way. No other comments or questions from board members? We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. President Burton?
Yes, and that motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 6B, approval to purchase curriculum materials for Jackson Early Childhood Center. And may I have a motion for that?
President Burton?
Mrs. Bradford.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District purchase creative curriculum materials and resources for use in our infant, 2-year-old preschool, and young fives classrooms for a total of $31,675. This purchase includes print and digital materials for teachers and books and materials for students.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bradford, supported by Mr. Centers. Mrs. O'Brien.
Yes, thank you, President Burton. Over the past year and a half, Carol Kerrigan and her team at Jackson Center have followed our textbook adoption process, reviewed and piloted materials, and concluded with a recommendation to purchase creative curriculum for our preschool programs, early childhood programs, young fives at Jackson Center. This curriculum resource provides teachers with 9-unit guides, a digital platform for students which has both books and activities, and then activities for them to do in their preschool classroom that are literacy-based teaching strategies and book collections, discussion cards, and then activity cards for intentional center programs or center activities. It also has an access for app for parents to access the materials themselves from at home. This purchase is 12 sets of materials, and each set will be shared by 2 teachers. Like was stated, the total purchase is $31,675. This will come out of our elementary textbook budget, which has been supported by the Wayne County Enhancement Millage monies.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the board or superintendent? Yes. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, President Burton. Mrs. O'Brien, are any of these materials consumables?
Well, after time, like the teaching cards may wear out, but it's not a workbook.
It's not a workbook.
So that it has tangible books, it has tangible activity cards, but not something that we need to buy every year.
Okay, great, thank you.
Actually, though, the license is something that will need to be reviewed, renewed, not reviewed, renewed.
Okay, great. Other questions or comments from the superintendent or the board? All righty. Seeing none, we have the motion by Mrs. Bradford, supported by Mr. Centers. And Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bradford says yes. Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
President Burton?
Yes, thank you. The motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 6C, reconfirmation of the extended COVID-19 continuity of learning plan. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Acosta.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District reconfirm the continuity of learning plan that was approved on September 28, 2020, The plan recommends that students continue to receive instruction either through Livonia Virtual or in-person instruction in our schools.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Acosta, supported by Mrs. Bradford. And Mrs. O'Brien.
Yep, thank you. As you know, each month we have a review of what we would offer as our mode of instruction. As Mrs. Acosta stated, we are recommending continuing Livonia virtual and in-person education. As a part of state law, we vote each month, and we have a review of our attendance over the last month. So for the past 4 weeks, we have had just over and just under 95% attendance. So 3 weeks ago, 95%, then 95% again the week of March 1st, the week of March 8th, 94.4%, and last week a slight dip, 92.9% attendance rate in Livonia Public Schools.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, thank you. Are there questions or comments from the board or superintendent? Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, President Burton. Mrs. O'Brien, is there been any indication as to how long we're going to have to continually do this on a monthly basis?
At this point, it's for this school year.
Just the end of this school year? Okay.
So far, that's what it's at.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other comments or questions from board members? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Acosta, supported by Mrs. Bradford. And Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Acosta.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. Mr. Centers.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
President Burton.
Yes, thank you. Motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 6D, recommended expulsion of one secondary student. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mr. Centers?
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District expel one middle school student for violations of the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education policies.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mr. Johnson. Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Yes. Mr. Centers.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. President Burton.
Yes. Motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 7, business matters, and we go to 7C, which is approve of bid results for central office renovation. May I have a motion, please? Yep, we're all getting there. Everyone can hold tight with us while we jump ahead a little bit.
President Burton.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Move that the board.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the recommendation from the owner's representative, Plant Moran Cressa, to approve the construction project for the Central Office Administration Building renovation, general contracting services, to Braun Construction Group, Farmington Hills, Michigan, in the amount of $2,210,304, plus a 10% contingency in the amount of $221,030, for a total project amount of $2,431,334, and authorize the superintendent or her designee to negotiate and execute final contracts with the recommended contractor.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mr. Johnson. And Mr. Francis or Mrs. Smith? I'm not sure which one is going to be addressing this first.
That'll be me.
Okay.
Thank you, President Burton. We spoke extensively about this at the Committee of the Whole previously, so I do want to encourage any of the audience members who might be at home to go back and maybe watch that YouTube section where we discussed it, because there was quite a bit of back and forth and questions from the board and information from myself, Mr. Weber from Plant Moran Cressa, Ms. Oquist, Mrs. Smith, et cetera. So I don't want to do, that again, so I just want to direct everybody back to those details. But I'll give a quick summation in that First of all, this project's been talked about quite a bit with the board, and specifically, this administration building at the central office complex is many decades old, one section even older than the other, and the last completed renovation that we had found in our records was 1990, and that was really some partial sections. It wasn't a complete remodel of the building. So this will be the first in potentially since this site was created. So it is an important renovation. We are going to be using the funds from the capital projects. Those are one-time funds that have come in from sale of property, so they'll be expended on a one-time item. So that's a wise suggestion from my colleague in the finance department. And we are going to be recommending Braun. I just want to give a quick note on the bid results, just to remind everyone, they were actually very good bid results. We had nine folks come in for bids. We had many people come for the pre-bid walkthrough of the building to ask questions and see what they, put eyes on the building and what we were talking about in the prints. It was a fairly tight bid results, so we conducted post-bid interviews with three different, the three lowest bidders, and we were very satisfied with Braun, and we did accept the one and only alternate. So at this point, we're very confident and comfortable recommending Braun as the general contractor for this project.
Are there comments or questions from board members? Mrs. Bradford?
Yes, can you let us know when you would expect to be possibly moving out of the area? Are you out of this office and moving, and what your plans are for that?
So to answer your first part with regard to date, we're looking at just before Memorial Day, that the folks in this building, so transportation, the mechanics, the warehouse, the maintenance, all of those outbuildings and all of those folks will be here. Anybody that is stationed, so to speak, at this building, the administration building as our home, are the ones that would be moving out. And we really have a drop dead of the 26th of May. Some might leave before that if they're ready. As to answer that second part, speaking of if they're leaving here, where are they going? We've been working on that piece. We want to make sure that we have some areas in other buildings that are nearby that don't disrupt the flow of what's occurring in the school. We'll work with some principals to get some spaces, and then also we've been in discussions of which departments need to be together, or one department with another department. So we'll get all that worked out, and we'll let our folks know when we have that. But the way things work in the district, everything's tied together on the network. Whether you're sitting here or at Churchill or at Cooper, the network's all the network. Our phones work everywhere, our copiers, our computers, et cetera.
So you plan to be fully operational for the entire summer?
That would be, yes,
Thank you.
that would be correct.
Other comments or questions? Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, President Burton. Mr. Francis, just looking at the numbers, we had a pretty good response to our bids, and this number is well below our budgeted number. Is that correct?
It is, and I do want to, again, point folks back to our more extended discussion, but since you brought it up, I do want to also remind the board that we talked about, this is hard construction. We also will be coming back to the board with regard to this renovation with furniture, because while the Braun will be the general contractors for the construction of this building and that type of renovation, it will then be filled with furniture. So the desks, the file cabinets, just about everything that's in it, it's going to be filled in. So we'll be back again in the future for the furniture purchase, which would be the completion of. So it's nice to know that step one came in under budget, and it feels good to be able to say that we think then that we'll maintain staying on or under budget.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other board members? All right. Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mr. Johnson. Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. President Burton?
Yes. Thank you, that motion passes. And we'd like to thank Mr. Terrell, who is in our audience this evening, and the continued support of Plant Moran Cressa on so many of our building projects over these last few years. It's been absolutely invaluable. It allows the Livonia Public Schools folks to concentrate on education while we lean heavily on your support and expertise in the building. So thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is item 7D, which is approval of design firm for Phase 2, Part 2 of central office renovations. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mr. Johnson.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve Harley Ellis Devereaux, HED, as the architectural engineering design firm for Phase 2, Part 2 of the central office renovation for a total amount not to exceed $52,700 plus reimbursable costs up to $5,000, and authorize an additional reimbursement from Phase 2, Part 1 of $26,945.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. And Mrs. Smith, I believe you're going to be addressing this for us.
Thank you, President Burton. Yes, this one perfectly pairs with the item just moved on by the board. This would be to authorize the architectural design firm to continue on with us, to assist us with the bidding out of this project as well as the actual construction of the project. So they'll be on site, making sure that the construction is taking place as it was intended to. And I will take a minute just to remind the board this was a process that's been going on for the last 15 months. We started this back in January of 2020, where we engaged HED to help us with the programming piece of the project, just to identify what was possible with this building, if it was something that we wanted to move forward with. The Phase 2 came in with the actual architectural designs that were put out for the contractors to bid on, and now this final piece is going to see us through the end of this construction project. And again, I will reiterate again, as we spoke at the committee meeting, this too is coming out of our capital projects fund. So again, it was the intent of the board and the administration to align our one-time revenue coming through the sale of property to align it with these one-time expenditures on these capital improvements. So that is the funding source for this.
Okay. Are there questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. And Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta.
Yes.
Mr. Centers.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. President Burton.
Yes, thank you. That motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 7E, approval of owner's representative for 2020-2021 bond. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Approval of owner's representative for the 2021 bond. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Bradford.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve Plant Moran Cressa as the owner's representative for the district's 2021 bond projects upon successful passage of the 2021 bond referendum, and authorize the superintendent or her designee to negotiate and execute final contracts with Plant Moran Cressa on behalf of Livonia Public Schools Board of Education.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bradford, supported by Mr. Centers. And Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, President Burton. It's my pleasure to bring this item before you. I attribute much of the success of our 2013 bond to the work of our owners at Plant Moran Cressa, who kept us on schedule, within budget, and ensured the quality workmanship done by our contractors. So I full-heartedly bring forward this recommendation for their help again with our 2021 bond projects. The cost is in line with what we paid in 2013. So again, I believe this the value that they will bring will be very much worth their approval tonight.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the board? Mr. Centers.
So last meeting, we went into depth about the value that Plant Moran Cressa brings, but I just did want to say that we have realized an enormous amount of savings through the bond working with them. Their expertise has been very appreciated. Furthermore, they've learned our buildings as well as anyone over the past years. So there's a lot of knowledge there. There's a lot of efficiencies having done the previous bond and also now our sinking fund. So this is really a no-brainer for me because I have seen the work that they do and the benefit to the district. So we look forward to working with Paul and the rest of the team again.
Thank you. Other comments from board members or the superintendent?
I'll just reiterate what has already been shared, and while the folks that you have normally see, whether that's Mr. Terrill or Mr. Weber and previously Mr. Smith, behind them is a significant team of architects and engineers and accountants who really work tirelessly along with our team to be sure that each aspect of the bond is done appropriately, efficiently, and again, within budget. And once again, throughout this process, we will come forward to the community and to the board each month with a quarterly dashboard report if this bond is successful on May 4th, as we hope it will be. And we would report out regularly as we have in the past, which really is an important way to continue to show the board's and the district's strong fiscal stewardship. We certainly take this opportunity to bring this request of our community forward and to bring a zero tax increase proposal for $186 million in net reinvestment in our schools, in our students, and in our programs is something worthy of our partnership with an owner's representative such as Plant Moran Cressa. So we're pleased to bring this to you this evening, and we are very eager to continue to get information out about this important proposal before our community on May 4th.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Bradford, supported by Mr. Centers. And Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bradford says yes. Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
President Burton?
Yes, thank you, and that motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 7F, approval of bleacher replacement at Churchill High School. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Acosta.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the purchase and installation of new competition gymnasium bleachers at Churchill High School by Intercal LLC, Kalamazoo, Michigan, in the amount of $254,128, plus a 4% contingency in the amount of $10,165, for a total approved amount of $264,293.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Acosta, supported by Mrs. Bradford. And Mr. Francis.
Thank you very much. This is a planned replacement out of the sinking fund. As many may recall, back in the summer of 2020, we had a planned replacement at both Franklin and Stevenson of their original bleachers in the competition gym. And we had said at that time, we would be then the next year coming back to Churchill. That's the position that we're in currently. We're excited. The folks over at Churchill are excited. We're going to be replacing those with the same company, the same style of bleacher, et cetera, as we did at the other two high schools. And that is the original equipment at Churchill as well. We're excited to have something that is both updated and safer. They will be easier to climb, handrails, lower level for walking up on, still electrical in and out as they fold and collapse again. So this is out of the again, the same company, Intercal, but that's the pricing is coming from the interlocal purchasing system known as TIPS, that contract, so that satisfies the board's requirement for bidding.
Are there comments or questions for Mr. Francis on this item? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Acosta, supported by Mrs. Bradford. And Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
President Burton?
Yes, thank you. The motion passes. Let's see here, sorry, technical thing here. Next item on our agenda is item 7G, approval of district-wide phone system upgrade. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mr. Centers?
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approved the purchase and installation of a district-wide phone system upgrade by Sentinel Technologies, Livonia, Michigan, in the amount of $404,261.13.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. And Mr. Francis.
President Burton,
Yes.
I just want to point out that it's an update and not an upgrade.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so you're saying, reading district-wide phone system update.
Yes.
Got you. Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Francis.
Thank you very much. So this is, as discussed, an update to the system. It is not the phone itself, it is the software that is the majority of the cost on this item. And the current hardware that will be replaced that's in the package are actually servers. And as mentioned previously, that the Cisco phone system is being, the software is being abandoned by the no longer supported. I should say abandoned sounds like a horrific word, but no longer being supported. It will be going now from what was a one-time purchase to now it's an annual fee for the software, which is a very similar product that most companies have nowadays with the annual fee on that. But what comes with that annual fee, beyond the upfront install and professional services for the hardware, will also be the maintenance through the 5 years that we have the updated phone system. This is an item that will be paid through the general fund, and we do recommend this as again, as I mentioned, the current phone system that we use is going to be no longer supported by Cisco. This is their new version that we're somewhat required to get if we want to maintain our Cisco phone system.
Okay. Comments or questions from other board members? And Mr. Francis, as was discussed at the Committee of the Whole meeting, this is pretty much the method that all of the companies are going to now. That we are going, whether we went with this company or another one, it's going to be a similar situation where we're going to have an annual fee.
Correct.
For that service. It's no longer going to be a one and done.
Correct. That's a very common item. What you get with that is, again, you get the service throughout, but there's a pro and a con with everything. While you get continual updates and service during that contract period, you are committed to an annual fee because at some point that runs out and then there's the next contract. It's a very common item that we're seeing. And again, you're taking the good with the bad in it, in that you always have a system that's updated and you always have the company behind you when you're on this type of pay system.
Okay, all righty. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. President Burton?
Yes, that motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 7H, approval to purchase benefits administration system. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Jarvis.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District authorize the superintendent or her designee to negotiate and execute final contracts with Benefit First for benefit administration services on behalf of the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mr. Centers. And Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, President Burton. As discussed last week at our committee meeting, it might surprise our community to learn that with a staff of 2,000, we still manually do open enrollments via paper and pencil, which creates a lot of work for our benefits staff. Also, any changes that are done require manually going into each different website for each carrier to do updates. So we are proposing modernizing that process and purchasing this benefit administration system so that it can all be done online by the employee, and much more efficiency when changes are needed, that the staff will go to one spot to put those changes in, and then it'll get fed out to all the carriers' websites to get updated. So a lot of efficiencies gained with this purchase, and we're very excited to bring this for the board. Should the board approve this tonight, this would be a cost you'll see reflected in our health and welfare fund in the next budget update.
Okay. Comments by the board, or comments or questions from the board or superintendent? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mr. Centers. Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Centers.
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. President Burton.
Yes, and that motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 8, personnel matters, and 8A is teachers for approval. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mr. Johnson.
I'll talk slowly so Mr. Abate can get to the table. Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the recommendation of the superintendent and offer employment for the 2020-2021 school year to the teachers listed on the attached document.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Bradford. And Mr. Abate, welcome.
Hello, everyone. This group of prospective new staff members we are presenting to the board this evening is comprised of special education and general education staff in the areas of family and consumer science, ELA, foreign language center, and resource programs. They are all well qualified to fill their respective positions and have been fully vetted through our extensive interview process. We are confident they will perform at a high level and represent Livonia Public Schools in a manner consistent with our shared vision and collective commitments. These positions have also been included in the 2020-21 budget and fill areas of need for the district. We're pleased to be recommending such a talented group of individuals to join the LPS family, and with your approval, we're excited to have them working with our students.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the board or superintendent? Mr. Abate, my one question I ask is, when we do hire mid-year, the reason for these hires, I assume is retirements or?
Yeah, combinations of resignation and retirements, primarily retirements at
Okay.
the mid-year. Mhm.
And they're already in the budget for this year?
They are correct, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Bradford. And Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. Mrs. Acosta.
Yes.
Mr. Centers.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
President Burton.
Yes, thank you, and that motion passes. The next motion, or the next item on our agenda, rather, is item 8B, teachers for tenure, or teacher for tenure, rather. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Bradford.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the recommendation of the superintendent and acknowledge that tenure status will be granted to the following teacher effective on the respective date. Christine Broom, March 4th, 2021.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bradford, supported by Mrs. Acosta. And Mr. Abate.
So our teacher for tenure on this agenda has successfully completed the district's requirements for probationary teachers, including years of service, evaluations, overall performance, and documentation of student growth. We have carefully reviewed all supporting materials, along with the recommendations of our building administration, and have determined that this educator should be granted tenure status with the Livonia Public Schools.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the board or superintendent? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Bradford, supported by Mrs. Acosta. And Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bradford says yes. Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
President Burton.
Yes, the motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 8C, leaves of absence. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Acosta.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the request for a leave of absence listed below. Whitney Graves, Brenda Kleinow, Laura Steele, Courtney Taylor.
Support.
And the effective date for all four is 2021-2022 school year.
Thank
Okay. We have a motion by Mrs. Acosta, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mr. Abate.
Yes, the 4 staff members listed are requesting personal leaves from the Livonia Public Schools for the 2021-2022 school year. These requests are in accordance with the collective bargaining agreement for these staff members, and we ask that you please consider the approval of their leave time for the next school year.
Thank you. Are there questions from the board or superintendent? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Acosta, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Acosta.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Centers.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. President Burton.
Yes, that motion passes. The next item on our agenda is resignations, and that is for board information only. That does not require a motion. That's item 8D. The next item that we have on our agenda is 8E, retirements. And may I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mr. Centers.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District adopt the attached resolutions of appreciation for services rendered by Judy Fedra, Stacy Grammatico, Darlene Hoy, Anna McEwen, Nancy Yoas.
We have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. And Mr. Abate.
And tonight, we honor and congratulate 5 members of our LPS family who have retired mid-year or have declared their intention to retire both in the coming weeks and at the end of the school year. As these staff members leave Livonia Public Schools, they take with them a combined total of 130 years of experience. On behalf of the administration, I would like to thank these wonderful staff members for the dedicated years of service they provided for the students of LPS. And I ask the board to please adopt these attached resolutions of appreciation for our retirees.
Thank you. Do we have comments or questions from the board or superintendent?
Just congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we wish them all the best. Thank them for their many, many years of service.
And almost without fail, whenever we look at a list of our retirees, there are some folks, having a staff of 2,000 employees in our district, there's some we don't know, and there's always some that you look at on that list, and it just tugs at your heart that they will no longer be with us and be enjoying the next chapter of their lives. So thank you so much for the service of all the folks on this list. 130 years is just amazing for 5 people to put into any organization. But we thank you so much for your service, and we truly do wish you a wonderful retirement. We have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. And Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Centers.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. President Burton.
Yes, that motion passes. That takes us to the next item on our agenda, which is item 9, hearing from board members. Do any board members have anything they'd like to share this evening? Mr. Centers.
I just wanted to take a quick minute to let the board know I've had 2 meetings with the MASB board members now, one with new board members to the organization and one a regular organizational meeting. I continue to be impressed by their ability to really model their governance after a good school board, and they function in that way. Some things to acknowledge, and I think they've done very well this year, is offering a lot of services to districts, going out, kind of restructuring how they provide services, doing things virtually, going to districts even more because of the challenges we have congregating in large groups, offering 101 to everyone new, every new board member in the state without charge. The not raising membership rates on account of that. So, and I thought the most impressive thing is, in a lot of ways, they've engaged more members and more trainings. And these trainings are rated just as well, if not better, than previous trainings. 99% of board members would recommend that someone else take the course that they had just taken. And that's 99% is just amazing. So it's clear that their staff has put in a tremendous amount of work to make online engaging so that they're not just presentations, but they're really engaged in thoughtful and valuable experiences for members. So And just looking to the future, I think aspirationally, you could see in-person events starting late summer. So we will see where it goes, but I imagine that this will change the way MASB operates too. Not only will you see in person, but I think you'll see more of these virtual trainings as well. So I just wanted to let everyone know, since I had the honor to be nominated to the board, and I just want to give everyone an update.
Absolutely, thank you, and please continue to do so. It's wonderful having that much information. This board has obviously always been, at least in the last dozen years, or if not many more than that, has always been very active in MASB and has really benefited from the services provided. I'm thrilled that they're finding ways to make themselves valuable to other boards of education, because as we've said many times, no one's born knowing how to be a school board member, but the training that they offer on an ongoing basis is so valuable. So thank you very much. I'm thrilled that you're serving on that board, and that as in other areas of your work, you've been able to bring your knowledge to our board table in that respect. Other board members with anything to share this evening? Mrs. Jarvis.
Thank you. I just wanted to wish our community a happy and safe spring break, and that people will come back to school healthy and ready to fly towards the end of the school year.
Absolutely. And reiterate yet again what Mrs. Okus had talked about earlier in the evening. If you've done anything other than play cards at your own kitchen table, please take advantage of the testing before coming back into school. Any questions, please contact Mrs. Okus' office, but you'll probably speak with Mrs. Wozniak first, and she'll be able to direct you if you have any questions on that. Any other comments or questions from the board? Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, President Burton. We had the opportunity to recognize 3 really outstanding people tonight in our educators and staff members of the year, but my guess is they would be the first ones to say that they had tremendous support from the people that they work with. They're the ones that help us every day, and it doesn't matter what level you're on, what your position is with the district. This has been a particularly difficult last 12 months. Everybody has worked together. We're seeing, as someone said, the light at the end of the tunnel. I just want to thank everyone at whatever level you are who have worked so hard over this last year to get us where we are today and to push us through to see this to the end. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other comments from board members? Seeing none, that brings us to the end of our agenda this evening. Thank you to those of you who have hung in there with us. We wish you a wonderful spring break, and we will see you back shortly. Thank you so much. We are adjourned.